Welcome to Paul's Politics, Radio Falmer's fiery Sunday afternoon orgy of political debates of current affairs. And yes, this week is Love Week, and later in the show we'll be engaging in an intimate discussion with a girl who claims to be in love. We'll see about that. But first, the Mick Philpott case has opened up a fierce argument between the left and the right about the future of Britain's welfare state. Mick Philpott, a long-term benefits claimant, killed 6 of his children in a house fire. He had 17 children in all. Many see Philpott as representing the failure of the welfare system, which spawned from the Beveridge Report, which identified 5 giant evils in society: squalor, ignorance, want, idleness and disease. Would you agree that the Philpott case has shown the welfare state for what it really is, a very flawed system? We're joined by Rob Frost, a political expert, James Quinn, not a political expert, and Molly French-Jarrard, who's sitting back in the studio. She's taking a back seat for this for the start of this show. Share a mic. Sharing is caring. Anyway, please, serious in the studio. Rob, about welfare.
I totally agree with the Daily Mail, for example.
What?
Mike Philpott. He is a vile product of the welfare state. A man who bred 17 babies by 5 women to milk benefit system.
You're quoting the Daily Mail.
We get headline after headline from the Daily Mail and other notable papers, such as The Sun, The Mirror.
The Mirror? The Mirror? No,
The Mirror loves a bit of benefit aiding as well.
No, they don't.
The Mirror's for the hard.
This week, the Daily Mirror were really defending the welfare state and the addition. I was going to say
Daily Express. I meant.
The Mirror are more radical than Labour about it. It's interesting because David Cameron wrote in the Sun today quite an authoritative piece about the fact that we need to change our welfare system and fast. Ian Duncan Smith is trying to push through laws, and he feels that people can live on £7 a day, doesn't he?
Look at the bedroom tax. When I first looked at the bedroom tax, it sounded like the old window tax in the olden times, the 1600s or whenever it was. This bedroom tax is a fantastic idea. I understand with Ian Duncan Smith is that if we squeeze these people back into work, they need to be forced back into work now, because years and years of Labour governments, Tory governments, the current system is just giving people the ability just to sit at home and not work.
Molly French-Jarrard, do you agree with that? Shouldn't we be dealing with the top of society before we start?
Exactly. I think that's completely true. And I think that people, it's almost like in this time of uncertainty, people need a scapegoat. And instead of looking at these bankers who are being paid £1 million bonuses and
getting a tax break.
Exactly. We're seeing these people who are isolated from society. And firstly, it's hugely over-exaggerated how many people actually abuse the system. And also, I think that in a way, in this time we should be there's this slogan, we're all in this together, but we're being told to push out these people and isolate them and blame them. And I think that's completely, and you're using the Philpott example, and I think the reason we're all so shocked at this, and it was obviously horrendous, but it shows he's not a good example to use to show the flaws of the benefit system. He's someone to look at and think he was a psychopath, and we can't design a system around psychopaths to
of course
see.
Not.
So he's an exception to a rule, and that's why it's so horrendous. And
that's how I feel, and I don't think the Conservatives should be so radical. And surely they're just using this as an excuse to push through their ideological change in Britain.
There's one very big difference, isn't there? One very big difference. These bankers actually put something back into our economy. They actually help build our economy, and
didn't they cause the financial crisis?
If we like it or not, they are getting us back.
Can I just say? I think first of all, I think that's completely not true, because they were gambling with our money, and it's not as if. And also, I think we've got this distorted contradiction in our society where we look at these rich people, and there's any suggestion that we should cut their bonuses, cut their salaries, and people are like, oh no, we need them to encourage them to work, we need to pay them more money. But as soon as we look at the poor, people want to pay them less money and take away their money to make them work. So it's this weird contradiction. And also, isn't it just from a pragmatic point of view? I don't know much about economics, but I've heard about the multiplier effect. And it's this idea that if you pay wealthy people money, then they'll put it in hedge funds and store it away. Yeah. But if you give poorer people money, they need to buy things, so they'll spend it and put it back into society.
They will, yes.
Exactly. So if you're going to do it from a non-emotional point of view, it'll benefit us.
It should be the top, that, in my opinion, that should be the tax loopholes need to be closed. James Quinn.
Yeah, I want to make a quick point. The thing with Mick Philpott, if you're going to blame it on the welfare state, isn't it like blaming school shootings on video games? It's the same concept.
Yeah,
like
most definitely isn't.
As soon as there's any kind of like anything like that ever happens, they always seem to think of like the most ridiculous reason to blame it on.
Yeah, and
this guy's obviously crazy, but
he is crazy. There are a lot of very rich crazy people. There was a very rich man who burnt down his house with.
Shot all of his pets and
So it seems very strange, and the Conservatives have used it, and the Daily Mail. I think the establishment have used it as an excuse to really knock the poor, and split them into the deserving and the undeserving poor. We're going back to the Victorian era, aren't we?
The current system is where you're on the welfare state, you're on your benefits, you stay on there. You've got no intention to go back into work because, unfortunately,
blame the system though, not the individuals.
Minimum wage is lower than what your benefits will be. You're better off staying on the welfare state, and it's just you're idiotic to go back into work.
I don't agree with you at all. I think most people. The problem that when most people are on benefits, they feel almost like excluded from society and isolated.
I think a lot of elderly people feel isolated because they're given the free bus pass and all these.
Also, have you heard this new thing about this MP who said a Conservative MP who said people on benefits should not be allowed to buy tobacco.
Well, this is it. We'll move on to that. This is a really, and I think UKIP have supported this. The whole party have supported this notion that that the benefit claimants should not be allowed real money. They should have tokens, and then shouldn't be allowed to buy tobacco, alcohol. And this actually happened in the 1950s. Rob, you were telling me yesterday.
I don't like this idea of a credit system. I do think it does downtread those. There are a lot of people on the welfare state.
Yeah, it's completely humiliating.
Of course it is. In the shop queue, having a token.
Exactly, and it will make people less likely to feel indebted to a society, so they'll just feel more isolated. They'll feel less like going out and getting work. It's just like it shows them as being almost like these criminals or like unwanted people of society, which is completely what we don't want. We want to have a sense of where people are encouraged to be integrated and join in and work. And I think most people do want to go out and work because people, most people you talk to want to get jobs. But
they do. But they feel completely isolated and demonised.
It still stands, though, that there's a lot of people out there who do cheat the system and shouldn't
on
be
the Jeremy Kyle show.
That's why Ian Duncan Smith's plan on... look at, the Jerry Kyle. I mean, we can laugh at it, but day in, day out, he has about 6 or 7 cases per day. Where are these people coming from? Britain. This is where the Britain we live in today. Ian Duncan Smith is completely... It sounds barbaric, a bedroom tax, but it's forcing people out to work.
Even if Ian Duncan Smith's policies were progressive in a sense, surely he should be focusing on getting the very top in society to give back all this money that they've hoarded and not paid in tax for the last however many years, 10 years. But your Starbucks, your multinational corporations.
Ian Duncan Smith is the work and pensions.
Should work together.
Be looking at those who are on benefits. Well, we should be. Obviously, I agree that we should be. These bankers.
I mean, George Osborne has come out and been just as strong as Ian Duncan Smith.
And we are a service-based economy. We need these people, and we can't just push them out of the country. We need them. Whilst these people on the welfare state, what do they give us? Oh, they killed 5 kids.
Well, it's just not related to the welfare state. But let's move on. I mean, perhaps why this argument is so biased is because the Labour Party, in their post-New Labour state of confusion, have been typically vague on the issue. Today, Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Liam Byrne was speaking on the Andrew Marr show, without Andrew Marr, he's had a stroke, and said that he wanted to strengthen the old principle of contribution. And the only detail he did offer of his policy would be that people who work and contribute to their community would get priority in social housing. He didn't offer anything else. All he said was that the Labour's policy would be very different to the Tories. Labour being typically vague. Rob, do they have any ideas of their own?
Even Liam Bryan himself has said that we live in a something-for-nothing culture. He wants to bring in, it's pretty vague, but as the opposition party, we can't expect too much from the Labour Party. But, well, maybe we should, but...
We should.
They want to go back to the old traditional Beveridge report style of full employment, not unemployment. Full employment for the government.
The Keynesian economic.
Keynesian economics almost. He's stated that there's 13,000 millionaires getting a £100,000 tax break. Tax cut.
Which is true. And it would be okay if these millionaires were reinvesting it into the system instead of hoarding the wealth. I don't know. What do you think, James?
I think that there's that argument like the Republicans make. You have to put the money at the front of the car, and then it goes everywhere. But interesting question, like based on economic views, because if they always argue about the top rate of tax, like the 45%, 50%, 40%.
They say
they've never been able to find that perfect number. Because you've got to have the perfect number where people are still happy to pay it. They would still be not being taxed too much because not everybody is a banker who's rich. I don't like this kind of.
Yeah, it's true. It's grouping. It's grouping.
It's the same with like the poor people.
Like they're a class enemy.
People say everyone's on poor. They're on benefit, or everyone who's rich is a banker. That's not true. There's plenty of people that have made money, not in banking, and I don't think we should be. These just grouping them into groups before we even before we start to judge them, and we judge them based on their
you could perhaps a means test. Perhaps even we could means test tax. If you've got you always want a Richard Branson to reinvest in the system.
Definitely.
Give him a tax break, but don't give a footballer a tax break. He's just going to put it in a casino.
But I think tax breaks shouldn't be a way of like punishing people. It should be a way of people feeling like they're doing the right thing of like of like paying out and Well, and I think there's and also I was like reading recently about this change in attitude of like in the 30s people had a real sense of when they're in a community they would kind of look after those who are needy, and now we have like a thing where we turn people into villains if they don't have the money.
Exactly, but there needs to be some real change in the welfare state in general. It's so outdated. I mean, I can't believe that Paul McCartney still gets a winter fuel allowance, and he can't even give that back.
Bob Crow.
There's no way of refusing it. It's just put in his bank account. A lot of money is just put in his bank account. He doesn't need it. It could be going to people who really need that money, and that is from a laziness from politicians to change the system.
I disagree massively because if you touched the old people vote is so important.
Exactly, but that's it. Political suicide. But I think if you got the elderly on board and persuaded them that actually they'd be saving the country if they gave up their winter fuel. Means test it. Basically.
No, I don't think you should mean test it. I think you should. I think there should be a way of saying, you should opt in or opt out. I don't. Means testing is a silly way because people. There was a study that they did, and they said that 10% of people would be willing to opt out.
Yeah.
So already that would save because isn't it? It's like 55% of all of the welfare payments goes to the elderly.
It does, so it's a huge amount of, and it's all for political reasons. Because we're an ageing population, and pensioners kick up more of a fuss than students when they go on marches. Did you know? Apparently, but